How do you follow up such incredible successes as GTA 4 and Red Dead Redemption? Both titles will be lauded at the end of this console generation as landmark moments and set new standards for what an open world game can be. Well, if you're Team Bondi and Rockstar, you take the framework of those two mammoth titles and turn it completely on its head. LA Noire places you in the shoes of Detective Cole Phelps, a veteran of the Second World War who's determined to right the wrongs he committed during the war. Starting as a beat cop, you rise through the ranks of the LAPD, tackling cases in the traffic, homicide, vice and arson divisions of the police department. Phelps is a massive departure from the usual Rockstar protagonists. He genuinely wants to clean up the city and ensure that justice is done, although in typical Rockstar fashion, even angels have something to hide. Although the types of cases you attempt to solve vary, the methods of investigation never really change throughout the course of the game. Each case always starts with an examination of the crime scene in question, with Phelps scouring the area for clues. This proves to be the weakest part of the game in terms of gameplay. What it boils down to is the player navigating Phelps through the environment until you feel a rumble in your controller. This leads Phelps examining the object in the world to determine if it is relevant to the investigation. There's no deliberation from the player at this point, and that is somewhat disappointing. Once all the clues in the area have been examined, it's a case of heading out and interrogating witnesses and following the evidence. This is where LA Noire really begins to shine. Team Bondi have implemented a technique called motion scan to capture every element of an actor's facial expressions. In game terms, the motion scan technology allows for the reading of subtle facial tics and tells during interrogations, and it really is a revelation. In short, it really does work as indicated. You can tell if the non-player characters are being on the level or not, and you can press forward with your interrogations accordingly. The faces of the characters are not animated in the slightest, they are actual performances by recognised actors, and this breathes incredible life into each and every one of them. At the end of each section of dialogue, you have to decide if the witness or suspect is telling the truth or not, and if required, produce evidence to prove it. It's not too dissimilar to the cross-examinations in Capcom's Phoenix Wright series in that regard. There's only one correct answer to each question you ask, but getting it wrong doesn't mean the end of the game. It only means that you'll miss out on a piece of information and have to proceed without it. The save system means that there's no going back to your interrogation after completion, so if you screw up, you need to deal with it. The fact that you can miss pieces of evidence makes each case feel more dynamic than it otherwise would. You can't fail a case as such, as the case will always end with you putting someone away, even if it is completely the wrong person. It might sound unsatisfying to have a case end this way, but you'll often find that it leads into a case further down the line. And in a town where corruption and danger are rife, it's no surprise that the police force doesn't care that an innocent man has been put behind bars. The real star of the show in LA Noire is the setting and atmosphere that 1940s Los Angeles provides. The city has been accurately modelled, and you'll see yourself taken in the sights of LA, such as MacArthur Park and the Egyptian Theatre. Using the real world setting means that Team Bondi can make use of real world events in their storyline. The beauty of 1940s LA is only skin deep, and scratch under the surface you'll find the city to be a very ugly and dangerous place, where corruption, murder, misogyny, rape, racism and more seep from every pore. Rockstar's usual lampooning of its characters and society at large is nowhere to be seen here. The game plays it totally straight and is the definition of what a mature game should be. You'll tackle the after effects of the Black Dahlia murder and also meet up with notorious gangster Mickey Cohen during the course of the story, as well as the urban regeneration taking place at the end of World War II. The game draws heavily from 1940s detective films, with smooth jazz and sharp suits being the order of the day. To take the atmosphere to the next level, Team Bondi has included the option to play the game in black and white. You really are put in touch with life in 1940s Los Angeles and the upheaval and change that the city is going through. LA feels like a city that's on the brink of change, and the level of detail in everything from the building facades to the vehicles is first rate. Speaking of vehicles, the car handling in LA Noire is very well done. It's simple but offers very sharp controls which come in handy during the game's car chases. Whether as part of an ongoing investigation or as one of the 40 street crimes that come across your car's radio, you'll often frequent a high-speed chase that takes you through the narrow alleys and back streets of the city. The controls feature enough precision to make each chase an edge-of-the-seat encounter, and the way each chase ends is more often than not a delight. You'll often have to get down and dirty with a suspect in the game, and LA Noire has made this a relatively simple affair. Gunplay borrows heavily from Rockstar's previous open world efforts with a very simple cover mechanic and an auto-lock aiming system. It means the gunfights never really pose much of a challenge, but they get the job done. I could have done with some extra feedback where I was taking damage, but it's never a huge problem. You'll also have to engage in a spot of hand-to-hand combat now and again, which again is simple, but it does allow for things like dodges and grapple moves. It does just enough to always feel satisfying. Finally, you may be tasked with chasing down a fleeing suspect on foot. By holding down the right trigger, Phelps will run and also clamber over walls and hurdle fences. It's not quite Assassin's Creed, but Phelps shows enough agility to make sure the chases always feel smooth. You have the opportunity to stop these chases dead by firing a warning shot at the suspect if you can keep your weapon trained on him for long enough. All the action sequences in LA Noire are very concise and to the point, perhaps lacking in depth, but it should be known beforehand that LA Noire is a story-based adventure game first and an action game second. And that's why LA Noire may prove to be Rockstar's most divisive game yet. It's such a departure from the likes of GTA and Red Dead Redemption that the people who love the freedom and opportunity to craft something unique to the gamer that those games offered may be disappointed in what LA Noire has to offer. However, by being so incredibly unique, LA Noire crafts its own path and offers something that's never been seen before in a video game. If you're looking for another open world murder sim, then this is not the game for you. But if you're willing to take a chance, can appreciate the craftsmanship that has gone into a project of this scale and ambition, and you cherish originality in your games, then LA Noire has you covered. LA Noire takes the scripted, story-based adventure of the likes of Heavy Rain and raises the stakes to new levels, bringing enough freedom to always keep you on your toes, but restraining enough that your focus is squarely on the work in hand. They've never made games like this before, and unless a sequel gets the green light, they may never make games like this again.
Why?